There we go. All right. Hello, my name is Patrick Vogel, and I am the facilitator for Natalie, Jonathan, and Lily. Today, we're going to teach you about restorative discipline in schools.
So, we want to give you a quick introduction to restorative discipline practices first before we get into the implementation in schools. So, I want to ask what comes to mind when you think of discipline? Might be the memory of getting sent to the principal's office as a kid. Maybe you've heard from other teachers who've had to send students out into the hallway for causing disruptions. Maybe that teacher was even yourself, as opposed to punitive discipline, which focuses on the punishment of individuals who engage in unwanted, different, or offensive behavior. The philosophy of restorative discipline upholds that students should be able to make mistakes, to reflect upon and learn from these mistakes, and to correct them as they continue to learn and grow. This means changing the focus from punishing bad behavior to supporting students along a path towards better choices.
So, uh, restorative discipline is an evolving field that only really reached the mainstream in 1970, and even then only became widely practiced in the 2000s. Practices have evolved quite a lot over time as it's a new field, but the main evolution was from punitive disciplines' focus on non tolerance for bad behavior to restorative disciplines' emphasis on gradual change and growth. To effectively implement these practices, schools and teachers have to build personal relationships with students, maintain standards for students while allowing them to make mistakes, and focus on dialogue between students and their peers.
So now let's focus on the relevance to Texas middle schools. How is restorative discipline important for both students and teachers in middle school? Restorative discipline is important to students because restorative practices have the power to change students' behavior to a more positive one and overall helps create a better and healthier learning environment. With the use of practicing restorative approaches like conflict resolution circles and conferences, it can help students better address wrongdoings and encourages inclusivity, relationship building, and problem solving. For teachers, restorative discipline is important to have because restorative approaches decrease disciplinary issues among learners and improves relationships between students and instructors. This overall promotes positive behavior among learners and as a result, helps educators teach more efficiently, all while reducing disciplinary disruptions.
All right, so let's talk about the benefits and drawbacks for middle school students. For the benefits, restorative discipline allows for teachers and students to be involved in an inclusive and open process with open communication, respect, and accountability. Restorative discipline is equitable and tailored to the needs and situation of each student, leading to a more fair application of consequences. The consequences are also more meaningful and are more likely to lead to a genuine change in behavior, reducing the chance of recidivism and recurrence of misbehavior. Some Houston ISD schools have implemented restorative discipline and have seen the academic gap between minority students and white students narrow. For the drawbacks, restorative discipline can trivialize behavior. Without an application of punishment, students may not feel consequences, leading to a culture of individual unaccountability. Due to restorative discipline being a different approach for each student, consequences can appear to be unfair and unequal. The practice can take time and energy away from teaching.
So, there can be some variation in how it's implemented across schools, and it's important to talk about that. Despite the benefits of implementing these practices, there will obviously still be situations that require more serious consequences. Research from the Center for Justice Research at TSU showed that teachers and administrators have discretion to choose punishment for 60 to 70% of violations, while the other percent of issues result in automatic suspension. And that's simply because some issues are more serious and require a different approach that maybe restorative justice or restorative discipline isn't suited for. And often the wide variations that are happening are not in the implementation of restorative discipline, but in punitive discipline, as data shows that minority students tend to face harsher and or more frequent punishments than their white counterparts.
All right, so let's talk about the reception. Minority groups see the practice of restorative discipline as more fair and equitable due to the genuine effort to remove biases, especially racial biases. However, more conservative groups argue that restorative discipline goes too far in the other direction to apply equitable consequences, creating an unfair system that holds students unaccountable and is burdensome. Some prefer to have the application of more punitive measures due to there being a real perceived consequence. Some teachers argue that they feel powerless to apply serious penalties to misbehaving students, and that the assumption that misbehavior is the school's problem and a failure of the school rather than an individual takes agency away from the individual, leading to a lack of individual accountability. People who prefer punitive measures will see the practice of restorative discipline as problematic.
So, what are some recent changes and developments in Texas regarding restorative discipline? According to the Texas Education Agency, also known as TEA, states that restorative discipline practices in Texas began in the fall of 2015. The Texas Education Agency partnered with the Institute for Restorative Justice and Restorative Dialogue at the University of Texas at Austin School of Social Work to participate in a statewide rollout. With the promotion of restorative discipline practices statewide, TEA has encouraged staff faculty to engage in RDP training courses for administrators and teachers to obtain. Although the laws in Texas does not require school districts to practice restorative approaches, RDP training information is still recommended for those wanting to adopt a new approach. Some recent developments offer certificates that can be earned through credit given participation, attendance, and assignments. Current 2022 RDP training dates and registration courses are open to the following: administrator training, campus coordinator training, early childhood workshop, fidelity continuum scale workshop, and new parent liaison training.
So, for our closing statement and our most important takeaways, restorative discipline focuses not only on making our classroom better, but also those our students will be entering in the future. Some key takeaways of restorative discipline are to create an open environment with mutual respect and inclusion, to allow students to make mistakes, reflect on their behavior, and then correct those mistakes in order to learn and to grow, and to work as and for educators to work as a team with students, administrators, and other educators. The main point is not to allow students to run willy-nilly, but to hold them really accountable for the behavior in order to make it better. Thank you for listening. One second, a bit to stop my recording. Where is the stop recording button?